So, welcome to the lesson where we talk about props. I tend to like to use props that I'm most familiar with, such as like swords, bows, spears, books, iPhones, etc., etc. But obviously, there are cases where you will not be familiar with like the prop that you're trying to create, right? Like if you're trying to design a medicine shaman, you're probably going to have to look up a lot of reference photos and different examples of different cultures and their idea of like what is a proper medium to channel the god's power into the mortal body. And so I thought today it would be fun if I tried to design maybe some props for Leah, and then we would move on to doing a little bit of a sample for the class exercise, which is designing weapons based off of astrological signs or based off of elements, right? And so you'll notice that I changed up Leah's design just a little bit again. Like I got rid of the bells that were on her shoulders, changed up black markings on the ribbons because I decided I didn't like how the fox face was looking, because I now kind of imagine that she might have like a kitsune mask on when she like executes her most powerful spell. And maybe she has like either a scroll of spells, or maybe she has like really sharp claw like fans kind of thing that she shoots out as her magic power or something like that. Again, like we're still developing the character as we go, because as always, as you go along the way, maybe you sit there for a moment, you take a look at your design and you're like, it's not speaking to me anymore. And you're, of course, by all means, free to go back and change things, right? So that's how I felt about Leah. And I don't know, maybe I'll even change her up again once more and try to add a little bit more westernizing, because I did mention that I really like the idea of like a cape, kind of like Howl's Moving Castle kind of cape. But we'll see where I'm feeling afterwards. So some things that I added to her design were, I added some sort of like chrysanthemum slash spider lily kind of motifs on her dress really subtly, right? Like they look like gold, but they're like really, really, really subtle. So like you can barely tell, but it's like every once in a while it looks like it's shimmering almost. And then I added a little bit to there, and then I fixed up the fabric right here, the fabric fold. And what I did for that was I took a towel that I had and I flung it out, and then I let that drapery kind of stop on top of a bottle, and I took a picture of that. And so I got these types of really nice folds, almost as if like it's blowing this way, right? And so like obviously, so if you're stuck with how to create fabrics in a certain angle or certain folds, and you want a certain fold but you just can't get it, trying to take reference photos yourselves is really easy, because everyone has bed sheets, they have towels, they have blankets, anything is possible. You just have to like maybe size down so it's very manageable for you to like blow a fan into it, and then you can create that kind of flappy that you wanted to see, or like if you wanted to see how it would drape if you were to lay it on the floor, that kind of thing. And so let's start with maybe designing her mask, her kitsune mask. And so I decided to use the fortune cat kind of design as like the inspiration, and most kitsune masks are like, the main features are that they have the white paint and along with the red black motif color pattern. And so like if we're gonna spice it up, maybe we make it so the eyes are going to glow green, just like her hair. And then we're just gonna reduce the value of that white so the green's gonna really show through. And maybe we'll emphasize that green glowing by including sort of a similar motif that Leah has with her eyelashes, right? Just simplifying it a tad bit. And we might add some markings or something, right? Try to spice it up a little bit. That might be a little too big for our taste. For sure, we're gonna try to add the bell in there, so maybe what we're gonna do is make the bell sort of like earrings on here. And we're gonna try to get some of those whiskers by doing those markings, right? Or better yet, we're going to leave this mask part empty so when her eyes actually glow, it's going to create that green, right? So we're gonna try to make this as fox-like as possible / cat-like as possible. Push down that nose just a tad bit. Add 2 little eyebrows or something. Because they're really cute, and I just love how when they're on Shiba Inus and they're so adorable. Maybe when we make that nose black, does that look better? It's okay. Maybe we'll push up that nose so it looks a little bit more cat-like. I'm gonna fatten this out a little bit, maybe in order to make it look a little more cat-like. Actually, the fox idea is better because Leah's whole design is kind of more oval, very elongated. So if we stick with like the fox mask kind of thing, it should help a little bit better read her character. So we gotta create a thinner nose like that for the fox. Scrap that bell idea. We're gonna make the bells sort of like lower, hanging lower right here maybe. too symmetrical. I'm gonna change up the shape of those eyebrows so it looks a little more interesting, just a little bit. Maybe I'll do one more. I'll do a swirl here. Alright, we're gonna try to get those whiskers in there. We're not gonna go too crazy. Because too many whiskers, then the mask is gonna look sort of encumbered. I'm gonna hook these bells on here. Zoom in a bit so I can just make random holes in these bells. Gotta fix this, add a little bit of warmth. Get that hole in there so the sound can actually ring out. Maybe there's a tassel here. A thinner tassel maybe, so it doesn't look so encumbering. if the eyelashes right here are really that protruding, I don't want to do another like super protruding stripe right next to it, so maybe I'll just shrink the size of those horizontal stripes and just push them backwards. Keep everything relatively round. I'll keep it mysterious by having no mouth. Maybe there's one more bell over here. No. Let's see, how can we add a little bit more of that color scheme in here? Let's look at Leah's design again. Okay, she's got her bells. Maybe I'll try to incorporate some of that chrysanthemum motif in there. I don't know if it's a chrysanthemum or if it's a peony, but it's a very pretty flower regardless. Yeah, maybe that. And then have that green just slightly in the corner of the eyes or something. And let's see how this would work when it's on her, right? You gotta test it out, see the overall design. So it's gonna be dark. I'm trying to imagine this as like her trump card, and so it's probably going to be pretty big of a mask. Maybe the ears will pop out. include your bells real quick in there, see how things are looking. I'm working real loosey-goosey right here again, because we're just trying to work out ideas and not necessarily finalize them. Just being lazy right now. Just pretend those are the patterns. And so I'll probably want to make the bell slightly lighter, right? Maybe we would even change the position of the bells because they're looking a little wacky. Alright, so we gotta make sure we get that long shape back. Close that down just a little bit. We're gonna treat this as like a 3D shape. So it's gonna have a slight cast shadow there. A slight cast shadow here. Wondering how it would stick out. So let's try drawing it from like the third side, 3/4 view without having to think about it, right? Without having to think about the hair and everything. So let's see. It would behave like that. Okay. I have a better grasp. So we're gonna do this. Again, basically when we're painting props, we're going to try to think of it as shapes and in 3D form because we have a flat layer right here, but now we gotta translate it into like something that actually exists and functions. And then if you ever get stuck, obviously you can totally grab some references. I definitely grabbed a couple of Kitsune Mask references, but I can't show them because they're all copyrighted, so. Alright, and then we're gonna add in our little pretty whiskers. Let's erase way right here, get our fox eye in there. Add our nose. Don't forget this side. Okay, so I'm thinking having two bells on that side was not the move, just because from this angle it would look too encumbered, if you know what I mean. Like if I add a second bell here, then this is very left heavy where the right side's kind of hanging dry. So maybe I'll make a bell hanging from down, or better yet, get rid of the bell here, because she already has an earring bell on this side if you forgot, right? She already has an earring bell right here. So we're just gonna do them on this side, but we're gonna make them smaller also. Just gonna have some smaller bells that are connected via this way, and then there's like a little tassel maybe also hanging by the side. And then we're gonna get that supernatural element. We gotta make sure this follows anatomy still, right? So here's why that was wrong. Right, and the nose cuts through this way. And so that means that eye's gonna be hidden a lot more than I drew it. So cover that baby up, get out of here, sorry. Hide it. And that's gonna look just a little bit better. And you can create the glowing effect by gradually increasing in lightness, right? Surround your light source with dark, and then it'll look really bright. Thinking maybe I actually want this flower motif up here to be glowing also. So let's try that out, see how that looks. What do you guys think? Maybe it was better before. You can't really see the glowing effect anyway. You might as well commit to just having that one speck of green. Have that become like the popping accent of when she is going crazy with her superpowers and everything. And then when she is in her mask mode, maybe her weapons. Right, we discussed like some weapon choices that she might have. I mentioned maybe she has a scroll of magic weapons. In Chinese scrolls, a lot of them have like this cloth covering to protect it, and so I'm gonna take some of her red from her outfit color palette and add it in there since she's all about that red and black. And then we can use some of that muddyish yellow or goldish color as the scroll handle. And we can make the scroll end like a glowing jewel or something. Or a glowing jade. And in order to get an accurate image of a jade, it's time to pop out our good old Google. And we're gonna look for some examples of jade real quick. Let's see. So from my research, it's looking like jade is an interesting precious jewel. It basically looks like a shiny marble. So if we know how to shade marble, I think we're good on our account. So let's give ourselves this color, the hair. Add a bit of more richer green as our shadowy color. Scratch that. The jade be looking a little boring. I want something a little more interesting than just like a circle at the end. And so here's where we start thinking about like maybe we can use some of our storytelling aspects to drive our creative thinking, right? So we know that she has a lot of cat theme, motifs, floral theme. She got bells as part of her outfit. She has tassels, she has ribbons, she has, well, just does she have? She could potentially do some kind of carving of a fox. She could do a carving of her name or seal name, right? Maybe that's the direction we go. Do a little seal name kind of carving. Looking up a real picture of a Chinese scroll right now, and I just found something that is pretty interesting and might help us. So I found something where they had a scroll with a fan in the center, and so I was talking about how like maybe Leia has fans as her weapon or a scroll of spells, and so maybe I can totally combine both of them, right? So we can pretend weapon. I'm not sure about the color choice, but we're just laying this stuff down for now. Oh yes, we love doing perspective. And so even though the fan is like this, because the scroll's all scrolly and like rolling out, it's not gonna look right. So it's gonna be a pain in the butt trying to do the rendering, but we'll try our best. And what I imagine for her fan is unlike the soft continuous fan, I'm thinking of like the weapon fan. So maybe indicative of her is that green color, green power. So let's get rid of that, do it again. Okay, her scroll, she busts this out and then unfurls like this. And then she's gonna bust out her power. So maybe instead of a paper colored scroll, her scroll is gonna be darker. So it's like forbidden tomes that she has been messing around with. And that way her spells are really going to pop out. And next to it, of course, is gotta be some rune symbols. Like, I don't know, some kind of squares. Scribbling, scribbling, scribbling. Do ourselves a favor, clean this up. Just gotta do a couple of mage circles or something. And what did we say about making things glow? So we gotta progressively go lighter, right? So the center of each of these fans is gonna be bright. And in order to get that glow that might be coming off of it, bust ourselves into hard light mode. Now this is just like a rough design. If you're going to actually put it into an environment, of course, you're going to have to also consider like light source, consider folds and everything. I haven't even considered like the whole scroll's actual shadow situation because I just totally ignored it, but I just wanted to play around with the idea like, oh, maybe this would work out, and seems like a very interesting concept for sure. So maybe I'll mess around with it a little bit more. Like you would use like a bell tassel again to keep it closed. And she keeps the whole thing These are not like your paper scrolls, maybe they're your wooden scrolls. Those might be more interesting, right? You'd get a very nice silhouette with this empty space, and then you'd get the red paper part, red cloth part at the back, breaking up that huge chunk. Or maybe I'd scrap that idea and just make the whole thing paper because it looks dumb. Right, you never know how it's gonna look till you try it out. Then you can decide if you had a dumb idea or if it's a stroke of genius and you realize you're a god at doing this. I'm not a god at character design. I just like painting and drawing things that I like to paint and draw, and then I try to riff on them and try find new combinations to do them so that they're a little more interesting for me to do. Of course, there's nothing wrong with just doing the same old, because there's always something to be said about one particular topic that people typically haven't said before, and because you have a unique perspective about it, right? And maybe these fans would be sticking out of the page instead of the way I made them. Let's try that. Because that was silly, and I did not consider something more fantastical in this sense. So let's just draw some ruins. I don't know what ruins these are. Just pretend they make sense. I have so much respect for those artists that do webtoons and they have to do crazy intricate runes or like magic tomes, and I'm like, how many different combinations of circles and squares and lines can you do to create those kind of things? You gosh darn genius. Okay, time to put the fan on top. Go back to our hard light. Where are you at? I'm gonna push it into the greens a tiny bit so we get some of that beautiful green there. Again, just pretend that shape is really nice. And you might apply a glow to the overall scroll, or do an outer glow kind of situation. Let's see. Cut you out. And we're going to play around with the idea of outer glow as though her magic is affecting the whole thing, right? So maybe instead of this dark gray, it might be a different color depending on my mood again. Size that baby out. Do it as a hard light. Yeah, we don't like that outer glow. Okay, we can delete the effect by right clicking and clear layer style. So get rid of it, get it back down there. And so that's like one type of prop Leah might have. I'm just going to finish this class off by trying to design some props for, like, say maybe one or two geological signs, and also all along the way like try to design the character that would use that prop, because props are very driven based on story. Like, you wouldn't just randomly create a sword with a two-handed sword for no reason, right? You have to have a character that needs the two-handed sword. Like, maybe they decided that it was much easier for them to spin swords rather than to try to use their two hands to coordinate it. Ooh, I don't know. So let me hide these. And I picked 3 right here that I thought would be interesting to do, but maybe I'll only have time to go over 1 or 2 depending on how fast the character designing process goes. So we can start out with the Taurus, which is basically represented by a bull. So I'm guessing this character would look somewhat like a bull with horns and everything. So maybe you'd go even further and actually do a boar-like character. We're just doing real quick character design so we have a good idea of how to approach doing a prop for them, right? What I was imagining for this is maybe they use a sickle or a big weapon just because they are like a burly type of character. So I decided to give them an egg and straw job, but no, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. They're gonna use a sickle, it's gonna be a big one because they are a burly character. And their horns are way too big for the head, but guess it'd be funny to look at, right? Can't tell what the hair situation would look like. Okay, we're gonna apply a fantastical angle to it again, right? I'm going to, or better yet, so they have an earring connected from their nose to their ear. It doesn't make much sense, but it looks cool. Let's see, how could that make more sense is the thing. No, I think it's just sort of how, like, inspired by how some jewelry accessories in Indian weddings, they have like a nose ring that sometimes connects upwards, and it's like a really cool design in my opinion. You shrink that head so they can fit the body. Something about those droopy ears that I've been doing makes me feel like maybe I should make this character kind of a friendly cow kind of thing. Where's my sickle? Okay, so how can we incorporate a type of sickle kind of thing? Maybe it won't be a sickle, just because I definitely feel like he is such like a burly character. He's gonna need like a really thick weapon. So maybe he's gonna be some kind of warrior with like an impromptu sword. And they wrap up their horns to protect them. Alright, if we're gonna give him the sickle idea, you gotta have more death themes then. Because we all know that sickles have the implicit connotation that associated with, like, what's that? Charon? Is that what it's called? In Greek mythology for the god of death. So maybe we're gonna mix him into that a little bit. So we're gonna include like animal skulls right here, or his armor is going to be like partly made of bone, or like, right? So like here's like a femur or something. I don't really see the structural integrity of a femur really holding up. Or like, I don't know, what's a good bone to use like a shin guard? Like a scapula, maybe? Like a pelvic bone? Those, you'd have to break those in half. Yeah, probably a scapula or something. Your chicken wing bones are being used as shin guards. And he ties the scythe to him using like his magic powers or magic threads, whatnot. We're gonna make his legs into cow hooves just to spice things up. I didn't really feel the shin guards. They were looking a little tad dumb, in my opinion. So close those babies off. This is like fur cape fur. Sitting on a rock or something, I don't know. Rocks aren't very comfortable to sit on, but hey, I guess to each their own, right? And so when you're drawing rocks or whatnot, you're just gonna try to think of like angular sections, right? Try to think of big sections like this whole portion maybe is like caved in a little bit. And now we're gonna try to refine that scythe shape. So maybe there's moss growing on here or something. If this scythe shape is going to be so angular, we're gonna have to add some sense of civilization to him so he's less barbaric looking. So it would actually make sense for that to happen. Or we can just change this scythe shape because it's easier that way. Yes, this is much easier. If you haven't noticed, I took a playbook straight out of One Punch Man, one of the villains. He has like these antlers also, and then he creates like energy ball in between. It's a cool concept. I'm gonna steal it for myself. I'm gonna pretend maybe this is made of bone or whatnot. No bone will ever look like this, but we will pretend there is some monster out there that has bones like this. Natural selection decided it wanted that monster to have the weirdest grooves on its bones, right? It's a very tall monster too. do some markings as though tattoos. We're basically tatting him up, okay? So give him an armband tattoo. He's also only gonna have 4 fingers. He's not human, right? So why bother adhering to every single rule of humans? I guess this guy's gonna have long hair. I don't know. Oh, I've been in the wrong mode this whole time. It's okay, we were just sketching. It doesn't matter too much. But it does explain why some of these things turned out real weird looking. Okay, that's like the quickest I can do for character design, but the scythe, we will work on it a little bit longer and make it look a little bit better, right? So we're giving it sort of a death theme kind of thing. Taurus is the bull. Are any of you guys Taurus born? Taurus? I myself am a Capricorn, so love non-confrontation. Or, I mean, depends on what type of confrontation, because if it's stuff that really, really annoys me, you bet your ass I am going to call you out for it. But if it's just stuff that I can look past, then yeah, it's too much work to try to deal with. And so right here, I decided to make his hand wrapped around like the scythe and everything. Add some more of this dark kind of mass. We're gonna make it like some kind of cloud, smokish kind of thing going on. So I'm gonna choose a brush that is a little bit more cloudy, give some of that misty flavor. Some of that misty flavor back down here. I think there's a better brush for this than this one. Let's see, maybe it's this one. No, it's not that one. It's 370? No, 370 is this weird patterning thing, but love 370. Maybe this one a little bit. Ah, 20, there you are. 20 gives this really nice, really soft kind of cloudy effect. So it just spices up the whole thing just a tad bit. Vary it using 500, which is like an actual cloud, I believe. Right? It's like a watercolor kind of effect brush. Go back to our regular brush. Clean up some of these areas. This time we're making this side pitch black, and then we're gonna carve out the ruins, or not ruins, but like the magic markings. Sora looks ancient. I don't know. I'd have to do more research in order to create an even more ancient looking one. I would just look up like Aztec or like ancient writing systems. And usually if you're looking at those types of like symbols, you're able to like create your own little rune system. Because right now I'm just using like basic shapes that I am familiar with to try to create like this sense of ancientness. But it's not going to be perfect, obviously. That's close enough. Okay. Well, you get the idea of how you would go about designing weapons or designing any prop. Like, say, if you have a really cute kitty cat, cute, really astronaut girl, want her to be maybe texting on her phone in space. You can showcase her personality by like putting little charms on her phone or like whatnot, right? Space bun, space bun. Real cute and everything. And you can know that with props, you're trying to add just a little bit more touch of like personality, backstory, etc., that comes from either the character or the environment. And so I think I've mentioned this like 3 million times and you're probably sick of me saying it. So I won't say it again. Just Google's your friend, Pinterest is your friend. Make use of it, but don't copy from it, right? So you're just gonna try to get as much like information from various different sources and mesh them up into your big old brain mesh pot of ideas in there, and then try to throw them at the wall and see whatever sticks, right? Trial and error can be kind of fun sometimes, although you can see I can definitely get frustrated from it, but try to focus on the fun parts. If you get frustrated, just walk away, come back at with fresh eyes the next day. And sometimes before you even realize it, after like consuming different types of media, once you like relax your brain, you'll come up with like a whole bunch of new ideas, right? And so I will see you in the next one where we will finally talk about environments, because environments are so important, especially if you're trying to create an atmosphere in your works. Because atmosphere, what it does is it helps set the whole tone and what kind of color palette and lighting source you should be thinking about before even considering the skin color of the characters or the props. And so prepare your butts, get your reference photos ready, and we will see you in the next one.